Your soulmate is in a deep depression. They are dying of regret for not telling you that they tested positive for. My beloved child, stop for one quiet moment, because what you are about to hear is not the story you expected. It is the story of a heart that carried a secret for far too long. A story that almost disappeared into silence before destiny decided it was time for the truth to breathe. Listen carefully, because every sentence leads somewhere unexpected, and by the end of this journey, you may understand why certain souls are never truly separated, even when they seem worlds apart. There is someone whose thoughts keep returning to the same place, to the same name, to the same memory. They replay old conversations, unfinished moments, and the words they never found the courage to speak. From the outside, they appear ordinary. They smile when others are watching. They answer questions. They move through their days as though nothing has changed. But inside, everything feels different. Every sunrise reminds them of another chance they let slip away. Every quiet evening brings back the same question: what if I had simply been honest? Stay with this story a little longer, because what comes next changes everything. The truth is not what most people imagine. It is not about a dramatic event that happened overnight. It is about the weight of silence. There was something they wanted to tell you, something deeply personal that made them question their own future. They received news that shook their confidence and filled them with uncertainty. In that moment, instead of reaching out, they pulled away. They convinced themselves that distance would somehow protect both of you. Yet every day that followed proved the opposite. What if the greatest regret in someone's life is not a wrong decision, but the conversation they never started? That question has echoed through their mind countless times. They remember the moments when your kindness gave them hope. They remember the comfort they felt in your presence. Yet every time they thought about revealing what they were facing, fear interrupted their courage. They worried that the truth would change how you saw them. They imagined every possible outcome until uncertainty became stronger than hope. And so, silence grew. Silence became days. Days became weeks. Weeks slowly became a burden too heavy to carry alone. But destiny has an unusual way of interrupting the stories people think they have already written. Something has begun to shift. Not around them, within them. For the first time in a long while, they are beginning to understand that hiding the truth never brought peace. It only delayed healing. They are realizing that honesty, even when difficult, creates possibilities that fear can never imagine. That realization has not erased their regret, but it has awakened something far more powerful than regret. It has awakened courage. You may not see this transformation yet. You may not hear it in words today. But quiet changes often happen before visible ones. The strongest turning points usually begin where no audience is watching. Think about that. How many life-changing moments start as invisible decisions inside someone's heart? This is why every chapter has its own timing. This is why unanswered questions sometimes exist longer than expected. This is why silence is not always the end of the story. There is another layer you have not seen yet. A realization is approaching that neither of you expected. It will force hidden emotions into the light. It will reveal why every delay carried a purpose that was impossible to recognize in the moment. And when that realization arrives, the pieces that once looked scattered may finally begin to form a picture that neither of you could have imagined before. So don't rush ahead. The next chapter holds the answer to the secret they believed they could carry forever, and it begins with one unexpected moment that changes everything. A strange thing happens when someone carries regret for too long. It stops feeling like a memory and starts becoming the background noise of every single day. And that is exactly where your soulmate finds themselves now. Every ordinary moment reminds them of the extraordinary connection they almost reached for, but didn't. Pause here for just a little longer, because the next piece of this story explains why their silence has become impossible to ignore. They have begun noticing signs they once dismissed. A familiar song appears at the perfect moment. A place reminds them of you without warning. A simple conversation suddenly brings your name into their thoughts. None of these moments are dramatic on their own, yet together they feel impossible to overlook. It is as though life keeps placing gentle reminders in front of them, asking the same quiet question: how much longer will you hide what has been living in your heart? At first, they resisted. They tried to convince themselves that the opportunity had already passed. They believed too much time had gone by. They assumed you had already moved forward with your life. But every attempt to let go only revealed something deeper. Distance did not weaken what they felt, it made them understand it more clearly. Have you ever noticed that the truths we avoid often become the loudest voices inside us? That is exactly what is happening now. The burden they have been carrying has never truly been about the news they received. It has always been about believing they had to face it completely alone. Fear convinced them that honesty would only create pain. Yet over time they have discovered that hiding from the truth created an even heavier loneliness. Now their perspective is changing. Instead of asking, "What if they walk away?" another question has quietly taken its place. What if I never give them the chance to know the real me? That single question has unsettled everything they once believed. They are beginning to understand that genuine connections are not built on perfect circumstances. They are built on authenticity, courage, and the willingness to be seen exactly as we are. That realization is opening a door they thought had been locked forever. And here's something even more surprising. They have started imagining conversations that never happened. They picture themselves finally speaking openly, finally replacing uncertainty with honesty. In those imagined moments, the fear that once controlled them becomes smaller. Not gone, just smaller. For the first time in a long while, hope is quietly standing beside regret instead of hiding behind it. You might not realize it yet, but stories often change direction at the exact moment someone stops running from their own truth. If this message has made you reflect on your own journey, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if these stories speak to your heart, subscribing simply means you'll be here when the next chapter unfolds. But don't leave yet. The most unexpected turning point hasn't arrived. Someone close to them is about to say something they never anticipated hearing, words that will challenge every excuse they've been holding on to. Those words won't erase the past, but they will make one thing impossible to ignore: the future still contains a choice. And that choice is closer than either of you realizes. Everything is about to become clearer, because there comes a moment when even the strongest walls built around the heart can no longer hold back the truth. That moment is approaching now, and your soulmate can feel it long before anyone else notices. They wake up with the same thought. They fall asleep with the same question. And somewhere between those quiet hours, they realize they are no longer fighting their feelings, they are fighting time. Stay with this story until the very last line, because the next revelation connects every hidden piece you have heard so far. Over the past few days, something inside them has changed in a way they never expected. They no longer spend every moment asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" Instead, a new thought keeps returning. What if this silence is the only thing standing between us? That question has become impossible to ignore. The regret they carry is no longer just about the secret they kept. It is about every opportunity they allowed fear to steal. Every message they typed but erased. Every call they almost made. Every moment they imagined hearing your voice but convinced themselves to wait one more day. Yet life has an unusual way of rewarding those who finally choose honesty over hesitation. They have begun looking back at every memory you shared together. Small moments they once overlooked now feel priceless. A smile. A simple conversation. A moment of understanding. They finally see what they couldn't see before, that genuine connection is never measured by perfect timing. It is measured by sincerity. Imagine standing at the edge of a bridge you were always afraid to cross. For years, the distance looked impossible. Then one day you realize, the bridge was never broken. Only your fear kept you from taking the first step. That realization is becoming impossible for them to escape. There is another reason this story matters. Sometimes we believe destiny arrives like thunder, loud and impossible to miss. But more often, it arrives like a whisper. A quiet decision. A single honest sentence. One conversation that changes the direction of everything that follows. Your soulmate is standing closer to that conversation than they have ever been before. Not because someone forced them. Not because circumstances became perfect. But because carrying regret has finally become heavier than carrying the truth. Think about that for a moment. How many beautiful futures are delayed, not by fate, but by fear? That answer is different for everyone, yet today it feels deeply personal. And then something completely unexpected happens. A conversation they never planned to have begins unfolding naturally. No dramatic entrance. No impossible coincidence. Just one ordinary moment that slowly transforms into an extraordinary opportunity. Suddenly, the words they believed would never leave their heart begin finding their way toward the surface. They hesitate. They pause. They take one deep breath. For the first time, they are no longer asking whether they should speak. They are asking how. That single shift changes everything. Because once someone decides to stop hiding, the future begins creating possibilities that never existed before. So don't assume this journey is ending here. The most meaningful chapter has not been written yet. One unexpected decision, one sincere conversation, and one unforgettable moment are waiting just ahead. When they finally choose openness over fear, both of your paths may begin moving in a direction neither of you could have imagined at the beginning of this story. There is one final piece of this story that has remained hidden until now, and strangely enough, it has never been about the past. It has always been about the moment when fear finally loses its voice. That moment is closer than anyone realizes, and your soulmate can feel it with every passing day. Wait until the final lines, because this chapter reveals why every delay carried a purpose. For so long, they believed regret would define the rest of their life. They thought the silence between you had become permanent. They convinced themselves that too much time had passed, that too many opportunities had disappeared, and that some doors never reopen once they close. But life has quietly been teaching them something completely different. Every day they have spent reflecting has changed them. The person who once hid behind uncertainty is slowly becoming someone who values truth more than comfort. They are beginning to understand that courage is not the absence of fear, it is choosing honesty even while fear is still whispering. That realization has transformed everything. Instead of asking whether they deserve another chance, they are asking how they can become someone who never hides their heart again. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes the greatest transformation isn't finding the right person. It's becoming the person who is finally ready to speak with sincerity. That is exactly where this journey has led them. The weight they carried is no longer controlling every decision. The regret that once kept them awake is becoming a reminder instead of a prison. They cannot rewrite yesterday, but they can decide what tomorrow will look like. And perhaps that is the greatest turning point of all. Because every meaningful story reaches a moment where the future becomes more important than the past. Your soulmate is standing at that moment now. They know that honesty may not erase every question. It may not instantly repair every distance. But they have finally realized something that changes everything. Truth creates possibilities, while silence only creates assumptions. That understanding has filled them with a quiet determination they have never felt before. They are no longer waiting for the perfect circumstances. They are waiting for the right moment to be completely genuine. Before this story continues, if these messages have spoken to your heart, feel free to leave a comment about the lesson that stayed with you the most. And if you'd like to continue this journey together, subscribing simply means you'll be here for every new chapter as it unfolds. But this is not the end. One unexpected encounter, one honest exchange, and one decision made without fear are still waiting beyond this chapter. When those moments finally arrive, they won't just answer old questions, they will begin writing an entirely new story, one built not on regret, but on clarity, hope, and the courage to finally let the truth be heard. The silence has reached its limit, because there comes a point when the heart refuses to carry another unanswered tomorrow. That point has finally arrived for your soulmate. They are no longer hiding behind "maybe someday." They are beginning to realize that every day spent avoiding the truth is another day they can never get back. Don't leave just yet, because the final pieces of this journey are falling into place. Something unexpected happened during a quiet moment when they were completely alone. They weren't searching for answers anymore. They weren't trying to solve the past. They simply stopped. And for the first time in a long while, they listened to their own heart instead of their fears. What they discovered surprised them. Their greatest regret was never the difficult news they kept to themselves. Their greatest regret was believing you didn't deserve to know the truth from them. That realization struck with incredible clarity. Suddenly, every excuse they had repeated for so long began to disappear. It's too late. Gone. They've probably forgotten me. Gone. Maybe silence is easier. Gone. All that remained was one simple thought. If our connection was real, then honesty is the only path forward. Sometimes the strongest people are not the ones who never struggle. They are the ones who finally decide that hiding is no longer an option. That is the decision taking shape inside them now. Even if the future remains uncertain, they would rather face uncertainty with sincerity than spend another season wondering what could have been. They understand that no one can rewrite yesterday, but everyone has the chance to write a different tomorrow. And perhaps that is the quiet miracle hidden inside this entire story. Not a dramatic rescue. Not an impossible coincidence. Just one person finding the courage to become completely authentic. Imagine how different life becomes when fear no longer makes every decision. Imagine how much lighter the heart feels when there are no more secrets to carry. That future is beginning to feel possible to them. Very soon, a conversation that once seemed impossible may become surprisingly natural. The words will not be perfect. The timing may not be flawless. But honesty rarely needs perfection, it only needs courage. As this chapter closes, remember one thing. Some stories don't reach their happiest turning point because destiny suddenly changes everything. They change because someone finally chooses truth over hesitation, hope over doubt, and openness over silence. And when that choice is made, even the longest season of regret can become the first page of an entirely new beginning. The next chapter will reveal what happens after that choice, and why neither of you will see the future in the same way again. A new chapter begins the very moment someone stops asking, "What if?" and starts saying, "It's time." Your soulmate has reached that quiet crossroads. They no longer want to be remembered as the person who stayed silent. They want to become the person who finally chose honesty, no matter how uncertain the outcome might be. Stay until the final sentence, because this ending is not about looking backward. It is about discovering what becomes possible when fear finally steps aside. For days, they have been preparing themselves for a conversation they once believed would never happen. Not by rehearsing perfect words, but by accepting an important truth: real connections are not sustained by perfection, they are sustained by sincerity. That realization has changed everything inside them. The weight they carried for so long no longer feels like an impossible burden. Instead, it has become a reminder of the person they never want to be again. They have learned that silence may delay difficult moments, but it can also delay beautiful ones. And beautiful moments are worth the risk. They imagine what it would feel like to finally speak without hiding anything. To replace unanswered questions with understanding. To exchange uncertainty for clarity. Whether every hope comes true or not, they know one thing with complete certainty. Living honestly is far lighter than living with endless regret. Think about that. How many people spend years waiting for the perfect moment, only to discover that courage was the only missing piece all along. Your soulmate has stopped waiting for perfection. They have started choosing authenticity. That choice has brought a quiet peace they haven't felt in a very long time. Not because every problem has disappeared, but because they are no longer running from themselves. And when someone reaches that place, something remarkable happens. Their voice becomes steadier. Their heart becomes lighter. Their future becomes wider than their past. Perhaps that is the hidden message this entire journey has been leading toward. The greatest turning points are rarely loud. They begin with one honest decision. One genuine conversation. One moment when someone finally says, "No more hiding." As this story comes to a close, remember this. Every meaningful connection deserves truth, compassion, and the opportunity to be understood. Whatever tomorrow brings, a heart that chooses honesty has already taken its first step toward healing. And maybe, just maybe, the story you thought was ending was quietly preparing to become the beginning of something far more